This video is going to be a film study look at the Lions' opening possession in their 24-23 win over the Rams wildcard round Sunday night. I'm going to look at this from a standpoint of what Ben Johnson and the Lions offense was able to accomplish. They went 10 plays, 75 yards to open the game with a touchdown. However, they also set up complementary plays that they could utilize to take advantage of the Rams' 5-1 nickel look, their base 3-4 defense. Ben Johnson and the staff attacked to the boundary often, and I believe used those boundary side plays to set up complementary or secondary plays that attack to the field later. I'll show you one very clear example of that in this video. Again, this is just going to be looking at the first drive where the Lions really physically attacked the Rams with the run game. They utilized Amon-Ra St. Brown in motion as a blocker. Look, throughout the first half, the Lions had run 33 offensive snaps and generated 18 first downs. Detroit's defense was getting rocked on the other side, obviously. But the Rams' defense, I felt like, was really getting taken advantage of and manipulated and out-schemed in a lot of ways. The offensive line for the Lions did a fantastic job blocking the front for the Rams. I think part of that was the manipulation, the structure that Ben Johnson put in place to give them the look that they believed they were going to get pre-snap. Now, things clearly slowed down for both offenses in the second half. The Rams outscored the Lions 6-3. I will have more videos to cover the Lions defense and their two stops in the second half that ended up being the difference, along with the two red zone stops, forcing the Rams to settle for field goals. I'm not going to show anything beyond the first possession here. First, because I thought this was Ben Johnson and the Lions showing their hand to the Rams in a way that basically revealed a trump card. Number two, because I want to see what's going to go through here from a copyright standpoint with YouTube for the playoff games. I don't know yet. This is my first film study for the 2023 playoffs. Hopefully I get to do at least 3 more weeks of these for 2 separate teams. And if this one goes through, fine. Then tonight I'll review the fourth quarter plays on both sides of the ball that helped Detroit close out their first playoff win in a long time. So let's get to the film. First possession, first play of the game. 12 personnel ace, a foundational formation for the Lions, and it's going to be an F counter play to Montgomery up to the top side. Now, the Rams are in their base 3-4 here. Why? Well, because there's 2 tight ends on the field. So it's 12 personnel. So right off the bat, Ben Johnson has elicited the base defense for the Rams. And then on the very next play in a moment, you're going to see he goes 11 personnel. So when they go 11 personnel, basically these 5 players, maybe not the exact numerical players on their roster, but the 5 positional players will stay on the field, and one of their inside linebackers will go off in favor of a nickel defender. Out of their base defensive look, you are oftentimes getting the 1 technique, the shaded nose tackle, to the field, and that's what you get here with the 3 technique, Aaron Donald into the boundary. So I'm talking about Aaron Donald being in the B-gap, outside shade of this guard, and then the nose tackle, I believe, is a rookie who's a fantastic player, being on the left shoulder or the left side of his helmet of the center. F counter play, you get a kick out by Jackson, and then Laporta up to the front side inside linebacker. Pretty easy combo up to the backside inside linebacker. 10 yards for Montgomery. Sets the tone right off the bat that we can do this. Oh, by the way, where's this run play? To the boundary. Very next play, Lions go 11 personnel. So you can see, like I described earlier, same 5 positional players. It's a 5-1 look. I know that some people would refer to it as a 3-3. When I say 5-1, I'm talking about where they line up, meaning those are 2 outside linebackers. They're not 2 guys that line up at inside linebacker. In any case, it's 11 personnel, and you got a snag seam to the field. What I think is notable about this one is you've got the nickel on the field for the Rams. And I think that Ben Johnson and those guys had a check here, or a box to check off. So what you've got is tight end and Jamison Williams into the boundary. Inside linebacker is going to push to the boundary because of the release by Jahmyr Gibbs. Conceptually, you're ending up with 4/3 to the boundary for the Rams in their favor, and then 3/2 to the field with the 4-man rush. The boundary side outside linebacker drop into the flats. The Lions took advantage of this later on in the game. David Montgomery juked the outside linebacker for a huge conversion late in the fourth quarter. But what does this kind of set up for later? Well, it removes the only remaining inside linebacker because it's a 5-1 look, removes him from anything to the field, gives you a very clear look at the space that's created out of 11 personnel when you get tight end and another receiver and the running back into the boundary. Didn't come back to that later from a complementary play standpoint, but I think it's notable to illustrate that for you and show you how putting 3 into the boundary against that 5-1 look kind of forces the Rams' hand in terms of which outside linebacker has to drop. If you drop the field side outside linebacker, now the boundary side corner has to sit in the flats, and it's a different read with the more potential to throw the ball vertically up the field. So, third play now. And I love this because it shows you what they expect of Amon-Ra St. Brown. It ends up going for a first down. It could have been a bigger block by St. Brown, but it's a 5-1 look again because you're talking about nickel personnel for the Rams against 11 personnel for Detroit. I also like that Brock Wright is on as the tight end, meaning you're not going to utilize Sam Laporta too many snaps in this game because of his knee injury. Thankfully, they were able to get him on the field. He got a touchdown catch. He had an impact, and they were able to get out of that situation healthy. So this is a play that everyone runs, but most teams run it at a 12 personnel or 21 personnel. The front side tight end takes on the edge defender, and then usually it's a fullback or another tight end in motion, engaging that edge defender and expanding him, meaning trying to push him more towards that sideline up there. Forgive my arrows. I got to improve my my illustration game. But you can see they're doing this with St. Brown, a receiver. Don't get much expansion, but what it allows is everybody else to be hat on a hat. I will give you the end zone angle of this play, and you can see how 95 wins versus the center. When I say wins, it's still a 5 or a 6 yard gain. So mission accomplished on this snap for the Lions. Also, I want to come back to the same exact formation and motion later where Ben Johnson sets up the Rams defense to get a completion to Josh Reynolds on the same drive. It's 2 plays before their touchdown. I think this gives you a very clear example of how the Rams kind of have to line up. If it's 11 personnel and you got the tight end to the boundary, you kind of got to put the 4 here, the 1 or shade nose, and then the 3 technique away from that side when they're in their nickel front. You can see the inside linebacker 53. Pretty easy to combo up to him when you're only dealing with 1 inside linebacker. The center loses this rep to 95 from the standpoint of 95 makes the tackle, but you'll take a 5 yard gain into the boundary all day, and the Lions, in fact, in the first half did. So now we're getting to a little bit more manipulation, 12 personnel. Base defense back on the field for the Rams. And when St. Brown motions over, the outside linebacker, number 0, widens up. Now, he's not apexed. He's not split between St. Brown and the left tackle such that he's halfway between or at the tip of a typical triangle. His feet are actually outside of St. Brown's, who's a little bit wider. And check the route release by St. Brown. And then the dig to Josh Reynolds. 2 things. It's almost a great play by the boundary side corner, 44, who I thought had some real trouble out of a press alignment during the game. Also, possibility later on in the game to give the Rams the same look, and I don't know if Detroit did yet because I haven't looked at every single possession. I've looked at the first 2 possessions and then the last 2. Watch 44 recognize there's no work for me, and he knows the route combination to the field, even though he's the boundary side corner. Well-schooled, well-trained on this play action. He's gone. Now, that does set up the possibility for Laporta over the top against the boundary side outside linebacker. You can see that if they were able to come back to that later on, Laporta's wide open, but it's almost a brilliant play by 44, and it's a great throw by Goff, sticking this in there, and an even better catch by Reynolds, who I thought had an amazing game, clutch performance, if you ask me. This one goes down for 24 yards. Let you see one more look at it. I like the blending of the run and the pass on this first drive. Really set up the Rams, kept them off balance, I should say, whether they were in their base personnel, like you see here, their 5-1 nickel. They didn't have answers for anything that Ben Johnson and the Lions were doing. From a simplistic standpoint, it went 12 personnel to throw, and then they went 11 personnel to run. Well, then what do you do on 21 personnel? Let's find out. Very next play, fullback is in the game. Cabinda, he's healthy now. Again, Brock Wright is on, not Laporta, so 21 personnel. Base 3-4, if you're old like me and you want to call it a 50, go right ahead. 50 meaning 5-2, 3-4, same thing. They both add up to 7. Power play to the weak side, to the field now, away from the tight end. Why? Watch the Rams kick their defense when the fullback offsets. So you're getting the 1 to the field. Donald is in a 5, so this is an under front. Backside 3 technique. Edge defender in a 5, edge defender in a 9. And the Lions know what they've got look-wise. They're going to deal with the 3, pull the guard from the 1 technique side. It makes it a whole heck of a lot easier for the center to block back on the guy when he's canted, when he's in a 1, in between the guard and the center. And then Jackson pulls, tries to work up to the front side guy, and you can see Montgomery squeezes through, gain of 7 yards. Everything working on the first possession. I think this first possession was choreographed and planned, maybe not in the order that they occurred, but these were the plays that were mapped out for the first possession to find out what look the Rams were going to give them against each personnel group. So very next play, Cabinda's off the field now, gone back to 11 personnel. So the front 5 guys have stayed the same. The other inside linebacker has moved off the field. What has Ben Johnson and those guys done? They forced the nickel defender into the boundary, which is not normally where the nickel defender goes. But because it's 11 personnel, they got him into the boundary. Cool. We'll motion the tight end over. We're still going to get our 3-on-2 on this screen that I think ends up going for 4 or 5 yards. Not a huge play, but body shots, jabs. I would equate these two. Showing the Rams coaches, first of all, their players, we have so many play concepts in here out of each personnel group. You're not prepared for this. And look, Detroit's defense wasn't either. They were outmanned in a lot of situations, particularly outside. To me, this was brilliant stuff from Ben Johnson and the Lions offensive staff. So that was a 5-yard gain to get a first down. 11 personnel trips. So now they've forced the only remaining inside linebacker, the Mike 53, to line up to the trip side. So this is different. It's not a 2x2 or 2x1. It's a 3x1 formation. So the Mike linebacker has now got to be, numbers-wise, to the field, to the trips. Otherwise, there wouldn't be enough people over there to defend this. Imagine his feet was back over here to the boundary, talking about this player right here. You're absolutely outflanked to the field unless the outside linebacker drops out to help you recreate that 4-on-3 that we talked about earlier. In this case, it's happening to the field. 3 routes. Laporta on the shoot route into the flats. 53 just gets enough of a shove on St. Brown to knock him down, and then Williams is going to kind of sit on this landmark at the top of the numbers. Goff is still making his read as I paused it, but you can see he's going to shoot this out to Laporta, and I think it ends up being an 8-yard gain. Positive development on the first drive, in my opinion, watching the game, because you had Laporta on the opening play, helping block for Montgomery for 8 yards. And then here later on in the possession, you've got him catching the ball and looking athletic out to the left sideline for a gain of 8 yards to set up a 2nd and 2. Very next play, remember that toss play into the boundary to Montgomery? It was reverse of this, where St. Brown motioned to the boundary, the tight end engaged the edge defender, and I talked about usually it's fullbacks or tight ends that are the guy in motion. The second player to engage that edge defender, try to expand him. Exact same formation, exact same look, same motion. Fake toss by Goff. So they've pulled the nickel defender who was to the field in between the hashes, created all this space for Josh Reynolds to run onto with this little delayed slant that ends up going for 8 yards, almost getting them in the end zone. I love to see complementary plays that look the same, and credit to the Rams, that's what their offense is about. Each formation they've got, they make plays look the same so that the defense's conflict is elongated. There's a little bit more conflict, whether it's 0.3 seconds, 0.2, whatever, in a defender, and their feet end up being just a little bit wider than normal, or than it's drawn up on the whiteboard when their coach designs the pressure or designs the coverage. And players are able to get 5, 6, 7 yards, whereas maybe in other situations they're only able to get 2, 3, or 4. Very next play, I'm only giving the end zone angle for these. Video's going on a little bit long for a possession style. Credit to the safety here, number 2. Coming downhill on this, it's a 5-1 look. 11 personnel, St. Brown motions over. Again, out of their nickel defensive front, they're 5-1. You're getting the three, generally, the three to the field, the nose here, and the three is normally Aaron Donald. 5 technique to the boundary. 2 has stepped into the box, so essentially you've got an underfront since the tight end is to the defense's left, the offense is right. And 2 is the unblocked player, steps downhill, gets involved in stopping Montgomery for only a 1-yard gain. I mentioned this in the reaction video. What I love is the very next play came back with the same personnel group, same formation, pretty much the same concept. Ends up looking like duo because you're double teaming both D tackles, and Montgomery's able to get into the end zone. This is a fun video for me to. This is a fun situation for me to finally be able to watch the film Tuesday morning, a day later than I really wanted to, or about 12 hours later than I really wanted to. So forgive me for it being late. I'm sure other content creators have got stuff out on this game by now. I want to see if this one goes through, and if it does, then I'll have something out later tonight about the fourth quarter situation. The defense getting 2 stops, 1 limiting the Rams to a field goal, and then 2 the stop to force the Rams to punt and get the ball back to Detroit's offense. And then the 2 first down conversions, 1 by Montgomery and 1 by St. Brown, that I thought was both amazing situations. In our Discord, our Lions Discord, I know I typed it probably at least twice. Multiple other people did as well. Get the ball to St. Brown. I think you have to get the ball to St. Brown. I didn't think the run stuff to Gibbs was effective at all from the mid-second quarter on. Maybe there was an 8-yard run in there, maybe a little longer, but I was glad to see them throw the ball on the 2nd and 7 to Montgomery out on the right flats, and then I was glad to see them throw the ball on that 2nd down to St. Brown to basically clinch the game. As an aside, I did mention this in the reaction video. I've gone back and listened to the broadcast. I find it hilarious that the announcers, I don't know if it's hilarious or sad or both, that the announcers didn't recognize that the game was over after that first down to St. Brown. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was at the 2-minute warning. So I understand if there was 2:03 left, that they may have thought there'd be some time left to force the Lions to perhaps punt or snap the ball to the punter who could run backwards and then take a knee since the time has run out. In my opinion, it tells you what they don't have in the booth. And I guess I'm digressing here from the point, which is Ben Johnson, Jared Goff, the Lions' offensive line, their position players, came out there on the first possession and schooled the Rams' defense. Out-schemed them, out-physicaled them, and executed multiple concepts in the run and the pass game to set the tone. But back to the announcers for a moment. It tells me that in the booth, they don't have things prepared. They don't have a sheet that tells them, okay, if there's 2:12 left, and the defense has 1 timeout, you can't take a knee. If there's 1:58 left and the defense has 0 timeouts remaining, the game's over. And the announcer, or whatever those numbers are, I haven't seen one in years because I haven't coached at this point in 4 years. In my opinion, it tells you the lack of preparation that's there, and it's shocking to me. I would assume that some of those things would be there so that the broadcast would be smooth. Now, it's also possible that someone in the announcer's ears was supposed to tell them that because that information might not be on the table in front of the announcers. It may be someone in the background who's supposed to relay it to them. It's kind of shocking to me. When you compare that lack of preparation to the unbelievable preparation that you've got by all the staff for the Lions and the Rams, but particularly in terms of how it worked out, the Rams offense and the Lions offense clearly had the advantage in the first half. The differential in preparation there is striking to me. And I think there's more to be said than I'm willing to say here. Anyway, I appreciate you guys' time for checking out this video. Let me know what you think of the first possession. If you share the same thoughts as I do, that switching personnel groups, utilizing St. Brown as a blocker, creating or establishing complementary plays, really got the Rams defense on their heels, and thankfully so because the Lions needed every point. Appreciate you guys' time. If you think other Lions fans would appreciate this video and enjoy checking it out, please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media so other Lions fans can enjoy it as well.